What's up, everybody? Alexander, the day trading champ. Today is going to be an awesome video because not only are we going to break down the earnings, but we're actually going to break down the charts live. Okay, so you're going to see how I arrived at some of my trading conclusions, how I do it in real time, and yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. So make sure you take a picture, a screenshot if you're on the phone or something. If you're watching on your laptop, just take a picture. These are the most important earnings to keep track of for options traders this week. Now, you guys know when we're trading options, the best part about options is you get to utilize the instrument to trade higher priced stocks. So we fully take advantage of that, and that's why you're going to see that most of these stocks are higher priced stocks. But that's, like I said, that's what we take advantage of as options traders. So tons of opportunity coming this week. We need to be ready for it. And with that being said, let's dive right into the charts and arrive to some trading conclusions. Alright guys, first stock we're going to get into is AutoZone pre-market on Tuesday. So I've not looked at the chart yet really. I just gave it a quick glance earlier just to see, what levels are we trading at on this thing. But alright, so I just pulled it up. We're going to go over this live. Alright, I have not looked at this chart yet. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask myself when I open up any chart, well, what is the overall context? What is going on the chart? Without actually looking at any little indicators, any little things like that. So the first thing I'm going to point out here then is that since the bottom we're up 500 points, so stocks recovered very well. They must be anticipating some decent to good earnings at least, right? Otherwise the stock wouldn't be moving up so well, right? But then I'm noticing now, okay, we've got 3 down days, and on top of that, accelerated sell volume. I'm noticing. Look, you see this? We got double the sell volume in just the last day. You see distribution, the distributing it as decreasing every day. So institutions are unloading their shares right now, which is not necessarily the best sign going into earnings. Usually, if they're confident in the earnings, they're going to want to hold it going into earnings so they can cash out after the good earnings, right? So that is giving us a pretty decent probability that we actually gap down after the earnings. But like I said, that's not necessarily true because we noticed with majority of stocks we actually gap up after earnings and then we short it after. Okay, so next thing I'm going to get into is we're at the very topping levels. All right, we're only 45 points shy of that. Okay, and look at our RSI. All right, now a lot of people want to use RSI as a bought slash oversold tool, right? Now that's not an effective way to use the RSI, guys. You don't want to use it as, hey, this stock's overbought, this stock's oversold. What you want to do is use it to gauge the actual strength at a particular level. Okay, so you see when we're at the very top level, right? The top level for the stock, the RSI is only about 60, okay? That's not a good sign. When you're at your very peak, right? When you're at your topping level, you should be strong. The stock should be accelerating and the RSI should be getting stronger, and you see the very opposite. You actually see that the higher we get on the stock, the weaker it's getting, right? So that's a very good sign leading into earnings that if we can easily short the bounce here. Okay, so we don't arrive to any trading conclusions without looking at the weekly chart as well. So I'm going to get in the weekly chart. All right, I'm noticing double top here already. On top of that, you got these wicks sticking out at this 1250 1260 level where they rejected very hard here and now here. Okay, so now this just gave me a very good trading idea, right? So we already know that the higher we go in the stock, the weaker the RSI is getting, right? The actual strength, we're not thinking about it as if it's overbought or oversold. We're actually gauging the strength of the stock at a particular level because that's how I use it, all right? And we know that if we get back up to this level, the strength is not going to be increasing. We've noticed this on this chart, okay? So that's going to give us more confidence to short it at this 1250 level. So now the two things I'm going to be looking for, let's go back to the daily chart, is a bounce to 1250 after some good earnings, right? That would be a killer play, guys. All right, we would short the bounce to 1250, or instead we got accelerated sell volume already and you got people unloading their shares. So what that would mean is that we could actually bounce below or drop below this SMA and actually use that as resistance, and it would be a very strong and reasonable resistance. Why? Because we see they're selling, they're trying to get it below, right? We're dropping here, on higher volume. This is the highest volume we've had since June. Okay, so it's pretty significant, how they're selling this thing. All right, so that's how we know we have a higher, chance of actually using this SMA as resistance, right? A lot of people don't understand that. They just use like the SMA, they're like, oh, we're going to bounce up off of it, right? That's not necessarily the case. We can actually use it in the very opposite way as resistance. So 2 trades we got for AutoZone, right? We're going to have to wait and see how does it trade after earnings. But from what I see already, right, we short a bounce to 1250, or on top of that, we wait for the bounce up to the SMA. Those are your 2 trades for AutoZone this week. Super excited for that. All right, I hope breaking this down live like that was very helpful, the thought process. And with that being said, let's get into the next chart. All right, guys, next stock we're going to get into, I'm going to pick a random one. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to flicker the mouse around the screen, and let's see what we get. All right, FDS or ACN. I'm going to go with ACN, all right. Let's just pull up this chart right now. All right, first thing I'm going to ask myself, again, what is the overall, condition? What I see without looking at any little factors, like little indicators, anything like that. Let's just look, how is the stock trading, okay? So up about 50% since the bottom, okay, that's 75 points there-ish, all right? I'm going to look at the daily chart real quick because I'm not very familiar with the ranges. Okay, so we're actually significantly higher since the crash, right? If you compare it to the bottom, or the top before the crash, it was trading at 210. Now it's at 236, so it's overshot. It's done pretty well, actually. Okay, now what I was going to say, look, ACN is only up about 50% since its bottom, whereas AutoZone is up almost 100% since its bottom, right? Or like 80%. So I was going to say that this is actually more sustainable for the stock to keep this level. But now that I'm looking at the weekly chart, right, which is very important, you look at the weekly chart as well, you notice it's actually much higher and it's done much better than its previous trading level. So that's why now I'm actually changing my mind and I'm thinking, okay, so there actually is downside potential here, and it's actually very likely for it to lose these gains because it's actually way higher than it used to trade at before the crash, whereas AutoZone is just at the same levels before the crash, right? Let me pull that up. See, AutoZone here is at the same levels before the crash, whereas this one is actually done very well since the crash. It's actually over that level. Okay, so the next thing I want to point out is we're approaching the SMA just like AutoZone, okay? And on top of that, look, I'm noticing same thing as AutoZone, accelerated sell volume, okay? 3 million. Now this is the highest sell volume we've got since June, okay? So very significant to point that out. And on top of that, just like AutoZone, I'm noticing, all right? They're distributing it, they're getting rid of it going into earnings, all right? So this is just the second stock we're looking at, but we're finding a lot of similarities here. And on top of that, we're at the very topping levels, and look at the strength. Very low in relation to how it should be when you're at your all-time highs pretty much, okay? That's a very good sign in telling us that there's a lot more room to move lower if it's this week at this level, all right? Top of that, we got a bearish cross, and yeah, that's for the most part what I see here in this chart. I like this a lot too. So what would I do? Okay, same thing as AutoZone, right? Because they're extremely, extremely similar. I would short a bounce to this 248 level, 245 level, okay? Or on top of that, I wait for a bounce to the SMA, short that there. I guess it's coincidence, partly that these are so similar, so I feel a little bad because these are so similar. So we're going to get into the next stock, but yeah, these trade very similarly. So this is actually a good gauge for us, right? Because we can see how AutoZone reacts on Tuesday, and then that'll give us a very good gauge on how, what's the stock? ACN is actually going to react on Thursday, okay? So make sure you keep track of how AutoZone trades because it could be very similar to ACN, considering their conditions and just overall how they're trading, leading into the earnings. So very cool stuff there, just seeing how similar they are, and then the fact that they're at their topping levels with very, strong, or a lot of weakness, okay? So with that being said, let's get right into the next chart. All right, guys, next stock, let's get into, how about MTN aftermarket Thursday, okay? I'm pretty sure this is a resort stock, okay? So it's going to be very interesting to see how does resort stocks trade and what is their guidance, because as you know, with coronavirus and everything going on, it's very interesting to know what is going to be like the travel restrictions and how are these stocks going to trade, during these travel restrictions in a time where it's very hard for them to actually grow right now. Okay, so we can get a very good gauge on like their guidance on what they're expecting for the future. It will actually help us trade other stocks like BKNG coming here in the next 90 days. So let's get into this one. All right, bear in mind, like I said, first time looking at the chart, so we're going to go over it right now. All right, first thing I notice, well, is we're up 90 points since the bottom, 80 points, whatever that is. Okay, severe uptrend here, and it looks like we're at the bottom of the range, right? Look, bottom of the range of this uptrend. Okay, so this would be the top of the range, this would be the bottom of the range, so we have more upside potential, especially with good earnings, right? So now I'm thinking, all right, let's look at the weekly chart. Go to the weekly chart to get more familiar with the ranges, right? So I see that we have not recovered as strongly as we actually got destroyed on the stock since the crash, right? Whereas you're seeing a lot of these other stocks, right? We pointed out with AutoZone, it's completely recovered all its losses here, and this stock has not. Okay, so in my eyes, I'm thinking it has more upside potential with good earnings here, and but then let's go back to the daily chart. So we get, like I said, we're at the bottom of the range. Let's say we get a bounce after earnings, good earnings or something, or it's probably going to be better than expected, right? Because I highly doubt that resorts are doing very well right now. But we're gonna have to see. I'm not managing resorts, so I don't know, and I'm not gonna act like I know. With that being said, you look at the RSI, right? Like I said, use it as a strength gauge. We're at topping levels here on the daily, and strength is low. Okay, so what I would like to do is we can either short it as we get to the topping level, right? You're going to want to see how is it actually trading, right? Because if it bounces up on very low volume pre-market, then you're going to definitely want to short it at this level. Why? Because the strength is so weak at the topping level, right? Especially at whatever this level is. We don't really have a number to go off of here. It's a little confusing. I don't know. I don't understand why. We definitely should. Stock charts, get your shit together. But with that being said, it looks like we got some crazy sell volume here, right? It looks like it. But then I want to point out something I just noticed, right? Is we actually got people accumulating the stock here on the accumulation distribution line. You see this? They're actually loading up on shares as the stock's going down, or it's having these tiny little red days, okay? And you got these wicks pointing out saying like, hey, we're not trying to break through this 210 level, and we're actually accumulating the stock. So yeah, it looks like we have a red day and it looks like it's going down on significant volume, but you have to realize that just because it's red volume, that doesn't actually mean like every single transaction there was actually a sell volume. So you actually got a lot of people unloading the shares, but you got people coming in and actually buying back up those shares. So very possible they're expecting some, better than expected earnings, would bounce up to this level and you can short it. On top of that, if price action is not weak, say they are actually trading extremely strongly on pre-market, this could absolutely be a play to the upside where we actually could break through this level, right? Because they're actually accumulating and buying up this stock. So I really like this, guys. So two scenarios, all right, that I foresee. I see a bounce up after pre-market, right? And it's either going to be trading on weak or strong volume. Now, if it's trading on strong volume, then you're most likely not going to want to mess with it as we approach this level, but you are going to have to, be the day trader you are and see how we approach that level. And then second, if it's trading up on weak pre-market volume, then you short the fuck out of it at this level. All right, those are my two scenarios for this trade, for the stock after earnings. That's how I'm going to trade it. All right, I either play to the long side here or I'm going to short it, just depending on how's price action look and what kind of volume are we getting on the day of earnings. All right, so guys, these are the three trades, or at least three charts I wanted to go over for earnings. All right, I picked them kind of random, kind of on what I thought might have potential and what would be interesting. With that being said, guys, nobody else on YouTube is going over these charts like this. You go and watch any other stock chart analysis, and all they're going to tell you is, guys, I think that maybe we might stay above the SMA. Like, no one knows what they're talking about when it comes to reading charts. I guarantee you, you're not getting this analysis anywhere else. So make sure you're subscribed if you aren't. And on top of that, let me know in the comments if you found this helpful, because I know it's a longer video, but I really want, if I can help 3 people out over having 100 people stay through a 4-minute video that doesn't help, right? If I can have 3 people sit through a 13-minute video and I truly help them and they can actually make some good freaking money this week, that's gonna be way more worth it to me. Okay, so if you're one of the people who actually made it to the end of this video and found it useful, you gotta let me know, because if I'm not getting anyone who's actually going to watch this all the way through and take advantage of this information, then I don't see what's the worth in that, right? It's not really worth it, okay? But I am taking the chance to hopefully help maybe even a few people who made it to the end of this, all right? Because I guarantee you 97% of people haven't made it this far. And if you do, hats off to you, because I can tell you're actually serious at trading. So you got to let me know so I know who are like my serious traders here who are actually willing to grow and get better. With that being said, this is the stock market, chart analysis for this week. I hope we make it a great week. I hope we take advantage of it. If you got any questions, video ideas, let me know. I got a next video coming out. It's going to be over entries and exits, because I know how important those are, especially when we're trading earnings. Those can make or break your trades. I think we all know that. So I'm going to get to that next. Make sure you subscribe, you turn on your notifications so you're notified on these videos so you can learn and get the information you need before the market opens. Guys, with that being said, I'm Alexander, the day trading champ. I hope you found everything useful. Drop a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on the next video.